Let's do some anti-queer propaganda from Russian state TV. This is one of the most popular Russian state TV propagandists. His name's Solenyev. He regularly dominates the airwaves on a number of Russian state TV radio programs and TV programs, and I wanted to show what he had to say about the queers today. First of all, the West plunges into a discussion of who is an F slur and who is not. For some reason, they translate a person's behavior in bed as their political orientation, a sign of being a Democrat. The idea is if a person is homosexual, it is inherently a quality mark to them. He is a homosexual. It's cool. Okay, first off, I don't think people use homosexual as a quality mark, like, I was gonna be friends with Steven, but then I learned he's just not that gay. He just doesn't suck a lot of cock. Like, that's not, I don't account, nobody counters that. This is a cartoon portrayal of the American left. And also, the reason why LGBT people are, I think, overwhelmingly left-wing is in large part because of the right-wing's homophobia. If the right wing was a lot less homophobic, I think we'd have a lot more libertarian gays, okay? And I'm being 100% with you. And this is also true about, for example, Hispanic Americans, Mexican Americans, Guatemalan Americans, that if there was a lot less bigotry in the Republican Party, I think there would be a lot more Mexican American Republicans. I don't think it's as simple as that, though. I think there's other social and like economic factors that push people in certain directions. I do think that you know, when we talk about like the idea of the wealthier upper class Democrat gay, I do think there's a reason why that stereotype exists, and I don't think that if we were to just remove all the homophobia from the Republican Party, it would be 50-50. I don't think that would be the case either. But I'd have to spend more time looking at the specifics of what that would be like. And we're also talking about a hypothetical, so we can't know. What are you guys even talking about? Why should a person's personal life be a factor for their political views? I mean, I don't know. This just sounds like somebody who has no experience in the American political scene. If one side of the aisle is being extremely homophobic and trying to deny you the right to get married, then you're probably going to go towards the other aisle, which is a lot more accepting towards you. Why is everyone all of a sudden worried about LGBT rights? What are LGBT rights? Explain it to me. Rights to fuck every ass around you. I mean, the right to activism, the right to protest, the right to publish media, books, articles about your community and the issues surrounding you. In Russia, you cannot be positive and openly gay. As in, if you present being gay in a positive manner to anyone, children, adults included, this was an expansion of the Russian anti-gay propaganda law, you can get jail time. That is a real thing that happened. That is a real thing that happened. And so if there's any society where you're talking about, what do you mean LGBT rights? Okay, well, if I can't even be openly gay in Russia and be like, it's okay to be gay and have any positive representation for gay people in media, how are you supposed to represent gay people in a positive way that fights back against the hate crime epidemic that's happening in Russia, or that empowers LGBT people, or tries to push back against these narratives? It's impossible. They have made it so that being an LGBT activist in Russia is nearly impossible. And we're not even talking about the extrajudicial killings of queer people in Chechnya, the torture, the extrajudicial detainment of these people. We're not even talking about that, which has been widely covered by human rights monitors and NGOs. Also, I will fight for the right to fuck everyone in the ass around me. It's a very powerful, politically uniting message. What's the principle? We already have anal sex. Wait, is he actually, so he set up this straw man that LGBT rights is just about fucking people in the ass, and now he's building upon this straw man. We already have anal sex. What's the principle? Why does everyone talk about LGBT rights? Well, suicide rates. This is something that's a really big issue to the LGBT community. Things like AIDS and sexual diseases. These are things that sexual diseases you can catch in the LGBT community while you're practicing unsafe sex, which is a big issue because there's not a lot of sex education around how to practice safe sex in the LGBT community, especially in areas like Russia. That's a big issue. And the post-Soviet sphere had a big AIDS problem, a gigantic AIDS problem, not just from gay sex, but also from drug use. And this led to, and this is really sad, children catching AIDS from using needles, dirty needles, and then dying. Not only from drug addiction, but also from the diseases they caught from using dirty needles. And so this stuff doesn't only even hurt queer people. This also hurts other families as well. People outside of that realm. But the stigma is toxic. The toxic stigma.
Принцип, вот почему все говорят о неких правах ЛГБТ. Какие у них есть права?
What rights do they have, or what rights they don't have as human beings? If you cannot be openly gay, then how can you, then how are you practicing your freedom of expression? How are you being open about your, how can you advocate on behalf of your community if you can't even be honest about who you are? Do they want to have a family? But if a family is a marriage between a man and a woman, why should the union between a man and a man be called a marriage? Just explain to me. Because, I mean, in basically every way outside of reproductive purposes, it is the same thing. And if someone was to say, well, the reproductive purposes is important, the only comment I would have for that is, then can infertile women or men who cannot, man who's shooting blanks, to put it in, layman's terms, should they not be allowed to get married? If a man has a penis, does it have to be called a vagina or what? Does no one demand it? I don't even know what he's saying at this point. No one screams, we should have equal rights, so demand that the penis be called a vagina. What is he even talking about? Who's asking for this? Who's asking that the penis gets called a vagina? I think this is supposed to be commentary on trans people, but like, I don't know any trans person who's like, you need to pretend my penis is a vagina. I have never met that person before. I know people who've gone through the surgery and like have had their penis turned into a vagina. But that's very different than just like calling a penis a vagina. I just want to understand why the union between these two people should be called a family if a family is different. Well, there's many different types of families. Is a grandmother and a grandfather raising a grandchild because the parents died in like a horrific car crash? Is that not a family? If a cow demands that everyone call her an antelope, does that make her no longer a cow? What is he? What the? I don't even know what he's talking about. Boy.